There we go. I'd like to call this work session in order of the Tullahoma Utilities Authority for October 27th, 2024. Work session today is going to be an audit review with Mitchell Smith from Winnett & Associates PLLC. We don't bring anything up in work session that we'll vote on, so we just get to sit back and listen to how well we did in our audit, hopefully. The floor is yours.
Well, Jason told me to stand at the podium, so I'm going to follow instructions for once. Thank y'all for letting me come speak to you. Thank you for allowing us to do the audit. I know y'all have been with Linda Bean for a long time, and I'm glad to get the opportunity to do the work for you. I always like to start off by saying whether or not we had any issues working with management or employees. I'm happy to report we did not. They answered our questions promptly for the most part. We asked a bunch of questions this year, and for the most part they were very patient with the amount of questions and sometimes the duplicated questions that we asked, because I think I had 3 different people out here, and so sometimes we stepped on each other's toes a little bit. But hopefully at the end of the day we gave you a good look at where you stood. So a few things I'll point out, and then I will get out of your hair. Page 7 of the audit report there, I think I gave everybody at the table a copy. This is our audit report. This is the reason we're here. It's the reason that it's the thing the state requires from us. So a couple of things I always point out here. They've changed the order of this over the last few years, and I'll just tell you I don't mind saying I don't like it. We used to tell what we did first and then tell the results later, but they've reworded it now so the results come first. So I'll tell you the results. The second paragraph at the top under opinions says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Tullahoma Utility Authority. This is what we call an unmodified or clean opinion. This is the goal of the audit. It's what you hope to get. So it just basically says these financial statements are a fair representation of the results of the business for the year and as of the end of that year. So the next thing I always point out is page 8. And at the very top of that page, most of this page is auditor's responsibility for the audit of the financial statements. I always point this out because I want you to understand what an audit is versus what an audit's not. So there at the very top we say our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement. I always point that out because I want you to understand an audit's not a guarantee.
That's right.
We're not here every day. We're not looking at every transaction. We're not, physically making the deposits and writing the checks. We can't guarantee that there's not something we missed.
Right.
But we do a lot of test work. Jason can attest, we asked a lot of questions to give ourselves a good comfort level that the financial statements here are a fair representation of what happened. So I'm happy to report, based on that work, our opinion on that first page is that this is a fair representation. The next thing I'll point out is on page 16. And this is, I always refer to it as the income statement. It's got a fancier name than that, depending on the type of entity. But at the end of the day, this is the revenues and expenses of the business for the year. So you can see here we do it by fund or by system. And each system, down there at the very bottom where we say change in net position for the year, each system showed a healthy profit, and overall the system showed a profit of $3.7 million roughly this year. So we had a good financial year. We're in good financial position. The next couple of things I'll point out are near the back here. So page 30. So there are 2 things I want to point out. One is neutral news and one is, I don't know how it'll hit you, but I want to point it out because it's a little different than what you'll normally see. For the most part, if you look at these financials and compare them to last year, you'll see minor cosmetic changes. Most of the information's the same. The notes are basically the same. Maybe they're reworded because we prepared them instead of Linda. Some of the balance sheet accounts are maneuvered a little bit differently than she had them, but for the most part, the financials are very similar to what they were in the past. These last two footnotes, though, are different because they're new. So the first one down at the bottom of the page, note L, is implementation of GASB 101. Without boring you with the details, there is a new accounting pronouncement that we will be required to implement next year for the year ending June 30th, 2025. But when we were here this year, we determined that sick leave wasn't being accounted for appropriately, hasn't been for years, and I'll get to that in a minute. And so we decided if we were going to calculate sick leave now, there was no reason to figure out how to calculate it now under a standard that's going to be obsolete in a year. So we early implemented this standard, talked to Jason, decided to early implement this standard this year so that we wouldn't have to calculate sick leave using two different standards in back-to-back years. So that's all that statement says there, is that as a result of implementing that standard, we had a prior period adjustment, which I'll get to the next year, of $826,263. That increased the liability for sick leave as of the beginning of the fiscal year we're auditing, because we implemented the standard that required us to accrue sick leave. So the next page is where I get into the details a little bit heavier here. So we had a prior period adjustment. I'll be happy to answer questions you have about this because I know there's quite a bit here. We basically broke it into three categories. And so the first one, we said the authority, number one there, the authority discovered during the audit there were some assets and liabilities reflected on the financial statements that no longer existed as of June 30th, 2023. As a result of this, current assets were overstated by $7,000 at the beginning of the year. Property, plant, and equipment was overstated by $100,000, and current liabilities were overstated by about $39,000. Most of this was old transactions that had sat on the books for years. And I know Jason said when he looked at it, he had knew some of this was out there, but individually it's all pretty insignificant. So he didn't want to rock the boat and change things that were in existence before he got here. Linda wasn't worried about them because it was the same as last year. And so without, I don't want to blame anybody is the word I'll use, but it's a first year audit. You're coming into it with clean eyes. And one of the things I always do is try to substantiate what's there. I don't have a basis for believing that what was there last year is the same as this year. So I'm compelled to look at everything a little harder that first year. And so I looked at everything, and there were a handful of things that were old and probably should have been written off years ago. I know some of these were world work orders that were on the books, and just nobody had said the work had been completed, so we didn't close it, so we didn't start depreciating it. And you go back and look, and some of them went back to the 80s, didn't they? I mean, some of them were really, really old, and so we took them off the books because they, clearly, something from 40 years ago probably shouldn't be here anymore. The second thing there is we say current assets were understated by $100,000 due to certain items being recorded in an incorrect period. The primary thing there was we had prepaid our software. And I think we pay our software every June for the next July to June. And so that should be a prepaid because it's for next year, obviously. We were expensing it, which is consistent with what we've done forever. And so that lines the expenses up year to year. They look comparable, but technically that's an asset for next year. So let's put it on the books as an asset. So that's what happened there. And then the third one, we said the authority discovered that some asset and liability accounts were not calculated correctly as of June 30th, 2023. As a result, current assets were overstated by $123,000. That is primarily unbilled revenue for the electric. We book an unbilled revenue. Jason books an unbilled revenue at the end of every year. When we looked at that calculation this year, we determined sales tax was included in that calculation last year. And sales tax isn't revenue to us, so it shouldn't be on the books as an asset. We're going to have to, if we collect it, we got to pay it to the state, so it's not really ours. So that had to be pulled off. And so that's the primary purpose of that one. So we accumulated all these differences and did this chart here at the bottom to show you how last year's asset and liability accounts would have changed had those entries been made. So this table at the bottom is just a reconciliation to say our net position, assets minus liabilities, on our original financial statements was $63,400,000. Had all these differences that I found this year been found last year and booked, our net position would have been $62,500,000 and some change. So about $100,000 different net position as a result of booking these. And so we booked them as of the beginning of the year so that they wouldn't impact our current year net income. So that's where we stood there.
It was closer to $1 million difference, wasn't it? 100,000.
Yes, you're right.
That's right.
It's 1.4. My bad. I missed the first two digits there, but yes.
And you're the accountant.
I am the
I'm the
accountant.
eye doctor.
Well, that was it. I just don't see as good.
I can hook you up.
So the last thing I'll point out is what we call our yellow book report. It's on page 48 and 49. When you do an audit of a government, you're required to assess internal control. Now, we don't audit internal control. I always point that out. But part of what we have to do is issue this report. So two things I always want to point out in this report. Number one is the first paragraph, about halfway down the page on 48, under Report on Internal Control for Financial Reporting. That paragraph just says, in planning and performing our audit, we consider your internal control over financial reporting as a basis for designing audit procedures. It goes on to say, but it's not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on how effective your internal control is. Basically, the idea there is, in order to perform a good, effective, efficient audit, we have to ask certain internal control questions. We have to ask about receipts. We have to ask about payables. We have to ask about billing procedures and adjustments. And there are things we need, how you run payroll. There are things we need to ask in order to know what tests we have to perform to give an opinion on your financial statements. But we're not doing that. We're not doing a full assessment of all the controls that go into your process. So we're not auditing your internal control, but we have to learn what those controls are in order to determine what audit procedures we need to do. If during that assessment we find a weakness in your internal control, somewhere we think can be exploited, someone could take advantage of you by fraud, or we could find, serious errors, repeated errors going on that would result in misstatements, we have responsibility to point that out to you. So I'm happy to report the last paragraph under that sentence. We say, given these limitations, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we considered to be material weaknesses. We didn't find anything there that we thought was a serious issue. As I pointed out, we did have some prior period adjustments. Most of those were calculation error, or we don't touch an account because it's been there for years, so to speak. So they weren't internal control faults. There wasn't anything I noticed where I thought somebody wasn't doing a good job or we weren't having proper oversight. They're just things that grew stale over time, and so we left them, is really the situation there. Or, like I said, minor calculation errors. We picked up the wrong number on a spreadsheet when we were multiplying. So
Most of it was past issues.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most of it were things that had been there for a while. Like some of them were smaller amounts, and so we didn't dig too much into the details other than to say that account hadn't changed in 2 or 3 years, and we're not going to pay that because we don't know who we would even begin to pay. So let's get that off the books. Some of them were things that were a little more significant, so we dug, and like I said, we figured out we had work orders in there from the 80s that nothing had been done in 30, 40 years on. So we need to get those off the books. Probably legitimate real assets that we had on the books for years, but we should have been depreciating them, and we weren't. So let's get them off the books.
Well, it kind of still points to, in my opinion, it still points to, though, that there's an area that we should be concerned about why these things are still there, are not being caught. So in my mind, it says that our process, or the way we do things, that allows us not to catch those things it's still something we should deal with.
Yeah.
So are we starting fresh?
I hope so.
Well, what I mean is, everything's been marked off, but we just don't know the source.
That's absolutely,
Yeah.
I feel comfortable saying that's right.
Okay.
That was my goal. That was a lot of these things that we found and we booked are things that had they been isolated, or had I been in Linda's shoes and been doing this for years, I would have said, well, these things aren't material, so we don't need to mess with it, and we might put it on a list and say, hey, Jason, figure this out and deal with it next year and move on.
Right.
But I don't want to get here next year and say, well, I did it last year, and why'd we let that go? And now there's another problem, and so when you combine them all, now it's material, now it's a real problem. I feel like the first year is a good year to wipe it clean, start over. So that's what we did. Any questions for me?
How do you equate the overtime pay? I assume that's been accumulating for years.
Overtime pay.
Sick leave?
Sick leave, I'm sorry.
Sick leave.
Duh.
Yes, sick leave. So the old policy, and the reason that I think it wasn't booked at all, and the reason that I think it wasn't booked at all is because the sick leave policy itself, your sick leave policy, says we don't pay sick pay when people leave. When they leave, they lose their sick pay. However, in your retirement policy is a provision that says we pay sick leave if you give us a notice, and we pay it at these varying percentages based on the notice. And so that led us to believe, well, you do have a liability. There are people here who will retire, who will have hours, who already earned those hours, and therefore you will pay. And so our way of looking at it, and we talked to Jason and he agreed, was we do have some liability. Then the question is, how do you calculate that liability? And so in discussing that, we're like, oh, we got this new GASB coming next year. And the new GASB pronouncement is harsher than the old one, in that the new pronouncement says that you have to accrue a liability if you will either pay it in cash or award it as time off and pay it with their salary. So effectively, all your sick leave has to be accrued in some form or fashion. Now, it's a very get into the weeds process. Jason and I looked and dug and went back and forth about an easy way to calculate that. At the end of the day, if you were going to do this just hardcore stern, you would look at every employee individually and determine what the likelihood is of paying out their hours. So it's basically accumulated hours times their pay rate right now, or June 30th. That's basically the answer. But if you were going to take a hard look at it, you would look at every employee and say, okay, Jason is a good employee who's never sick. He's going to be here forever, and he's going to retire here, and he's going to give us notice. So we're going to pay 35% of his sick leave in cash when he leaves, right? And so we're going to take his sick leave and accrue it at 35%. But the new hire I got, calls in sick all the time, we're going to pay 100% of theirs because they're going to take it in July. We know that's what happened. They're going to take it as soon as the month's over. So their sick leave liability is 100% of their hours times their rate. And technically the new pronouncement says that's what you need to do. And so we talked, Jason and I and my team of other auditors, and at the end of the day decided we are going to pay. Some people are going to take sick. Some people aren't going to take any. And so the truth falls somewhere in the middle. A lot of people aren't going to retire from here, and so they're not ever going to get paid out. They're not ever going to get sick leave. And so we decided a conservative estimate was to basically take everybody's hours multiplied by their individual rates and take 35% of that and put it in a sick leave liability.
But it sounds to me you got a conflict between two policies that needs to be addressed.
You do. It would be better if you put that 35% pay somewhere in the sick leave policy, because I really think that's where it was missed. But I really think it's intended, the sick leave's intended to be a retirement benefit for the people who stayed here. I think that payout is intended to be a retirement benefit. We actually add it to their retirement, right? We don't pay it to them. We put it in their retirement.
So so would we need to review the two policies and decide which one we want to do, or to make it more uniform? Because I think you're going to continuously have conflict. You got one thing that says one thing and another thing that says no.
Yeah, I personally think sick pay benefits that you're going to pay when they show up as sick should show up in the sick pay liability, in the sick pay policy. That's my personal opinion, but
Well,
Would
it
that-
could show up in both.
Would
I
that
think it's-
negate you having to guess who's going to be?
no. No,
See, I don't,
sir.
that seems very vague to me.
It's
Why-
incredibly vague.
And this is a governmental,
Yes, sir.
why? What's the reason?
I cannot begin to explain to you their thought process. I can say I graduated college in 2003, so 20 years ago. And when I graduated college, there were 34 governmental accounting standards boards pronouncements. There were 34. 34 was implemented the year I graduated. Today, there are 101. And so in the first 40 years of the GASB, they implemented 30 standards. In the last 20 years, they've implemented another 70.
Well, this GASB that
So-
you're talking about sounds very super subjective. That
It
does
is.
not sound like an accounting principle.
No,
Subjectivity.
It's very subjective. And you will find there are lots of things in there that are,
I'm
Like
kind of
that.
used to this.
Yeah.
If you work for the government,
yeah.
as I did for 42 years, I'm kind of used to this. The thing is, and it's not unusual for companies to pay benefits based on accrued sick leave when their employee leaves.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. The thing is, and it doesn't have to be rocket science as to how you decide to deal with it. But I'm glad that you pointed that out. I think it's good to have a new set of eyes, and I told him that when I talked to him. But I think we do have to. It's already in the retirement policy, right?
Yes.
And we pay it or I'm asking, I guess, if Jason was off sick today, would we pay it in his next paycheck? Is that our practice?
Yes.
Okay, so we already do that.
Yeah.
So we need to codify how we do it.
Well, I think the problem is this is only available once you meet a certain criteria
Sure,
to retire.
Yeah.
And I think I don't like the calculation.
Yeah. I understand.
Because I don't know how we're liable. If someone's not at retirement age right now, I don't see how we're liable for it. We could change the policy.
You could.
We can always change it.
And
Whenever y'all-
say that we're not paying a dime. If you're not retirement age today, I don't see how we're liable for it.
Well, we'd still have to book a liability. though.
You'd still have to book a liability
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
give sick time as
It's,
a benefit.
it's like OPEB.
And the
We're not
calculation you're using is, if you're taking Jason's rate of pay today,
Yeah, it'll be different, hopefully, 30
in
years.
in 40 years,
Yeah.
it's gonna be an
Yes, sir.
exponentially greater number.
Absolutely.
Well, I would tell you this, you would change your policy quite a few times.
Yeah.
You would change your policy quite a few times over time.
Yeah.
That's not, the rate is not the big thing right now, really.
No.
It's establishing that when people do retire, if you live to retirement, they do it different ways, but if you have been with the company 5 years,
Yes.
after 5 years, you're eligible for
You're
your sick leave.
you're vested.
Yeah.
You're vested. So whenever your time comes and you're here still with the company and you retire, then you get paid. Okay. In the meantime, if it's not already codified, that if once you are here for 6 months, you accrue 1 day of sick leave or whatever it is, and then when you're off from work, you'll get paid 8 hours sick leave. Both of those things need to be codified. We already got it codified in the retirement somewhat. So and they don't have to match. They don't match actually.
We're going to review all of our policies.
Yeah.
I'll mark this on the list. But
Yeah.
the other issue, not issue, but ours is 10 years.
Yeah.
That's
So-
fine. That's fine.
Well, what I'm getting at is, if you ain't been here 10 years, you should not be figured into this.
Under the old GASB pronouncement,
You could do that.
you would not have been in this calculation.
Okay.
You would not have been. But under 101,
You have to.
it says you have to accrue it if you're going to give them time off when they take it. So the person who just hired and earned 1 day, they're in this number. They have to be, because if they call out sick tomorrow,
Yeah.
you're gonna pay them for that. So they're in the liability. I think the big thing is now you see that number on there, it's $820-something thousand, and that feels like a huge, punch in the gut. We just added this liability. But I think the idea is, going forward, you book that liability as people earn it.
Yeah.
And so it more closely resembles your cost of operations. So Jason's working here another year, he's gonna earn sick leave over the course of the year, and instead of getting hit with that 20 years from now when he retires, we took that in expense each year over the next 20 years. I think that's the idea. It just, seeing it on paper feels bad. And I will say, because we book it prior period, the current year income statement only reflects the sick leave you earned this year. Because that 800,000 was last year's number. It just hit the net position at the beginning of this year.
Let me ask you this, and again, I'm very new on the board, and I don't want to rock the boat by any means, but I think the key to it is what are we required to do, and what do we want to do? And come from a small business, we didn't accrue time.
Right.
Obviously in this is a lot of calculation, it sounds to me.
Yeah. Is
Is it required that we do it? Or is it something that we need to adjust moving forward, so it's not so freaking complicated to me?
From a sick leave perspective, I don't know that there is a requirement that you offer sick leave. I know some places roll it in, and you got 20 personal days a year, and that's sick and vacation, and the policy is the same for both. But so I don't know that there is a requirement necessarily, but if you have it, you have a
If you
liability.
have it, there is a requirement.
Yeah, if you have it, you got a
That's-
liability.
Or you
Yeah.
can always, if you're there, you can meet what your current needs are and
Yeah.
then say adios and reevaluate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to do that, don't misunderstand me, it just seems
Yeah.
like this is bouncing one
Oh, it's
area
huge.
off against another area within your performance. Seems like it would be a nightmare.
It was a nightmare to calculate at year one. It just was huge, and that's why we couldn't. We talked about it at length, sitting in Jason's office with, do you want to go through and identify the employees who are going to use it? Because that's at 100% versus the employees who won't, and therefore we can calculate them at 35%. Or do you want to come to let's come to a
You're
number.
accruing for future anticipation.
Yeah, that's what
versus
it is.
a moving target for them, I'm sure.
Well, our number will decrease dramatically because we have,
How many employees are we talking?
we have 10 people, 60 plus,
Right now.
and 20, 55
Yeah.
plus, so that's a lot of vacation accrued.
Yeah.
Scott Young and others like him. So that number will decrease
You would think.
over the next
I
few
can
years.
tell you what it did this year compared to last year. We said it started June 2023 at 826,000, and the number on the balance sheet at the end of this year for that was, I got that in the notes. It'd be easier to see it. Was, oh wait a minute, that includes vacation. So the compensated absences number on page 25, that is sick and vacation. That's why that beginning number, 1.3 million, doesn't match our 800, because the 800 is just the adjustment we made. So that's vacation and sick, but your vacation and sick accrual went up about 50 grand this year to 1.4. And we say of that, the current portion is $514,000. That is vacation that's required to be taken in the next year, plus sick leave that we identified as these people are leaving, and therefore they're going to get paid out.
It's important to say we're not changing, we're not trying to change the way we do business. We're not changing the way we do things. That's the most important thing.
We're going to account for it.
Yeah, we've been operating like this, and that's where I guess we want to continue operating. So it's not that our processes of doing it bad or anything like that.
No.
I think it's important to remember. It's the way that we address it. So we're not trying to change the way we do things.
No.
And we dealt with this about 5 years ago when OPEB, I think it was
Yeah.
18. It was the same thing. If you look at page 28, you can see what our total OPEB liability is, and we don't.
Yeah. You want to talk
It's just-
about that number is completely made up. It's by people a whole lot smarter than me. The actuaries come up with that number, and I can't even pretend to understand how they calculate all that. So,
Any other questions?
So I would just like to thank you all.
Thank you, yes.
Personally, I think it's always good from time to time to have a fresh set of eyes. Because I do know from just personal experience, if you work with an organization, really a good performing organization, a high performing organization, then it's just human nature almost, that the things that have normally been right there and, are tight, that you kind of, and they drift, by the way, if you're not careful. I think, you just kind of get used to going to here and saying, well, let's see if anything's changed, and you don't really get down into it and look at where they dot the I's and that type thing. So I think it's good to have a fresh set of eyes, pick up on things. Again, thank you for a very thorough audit. I would like to say that, and I'm pleased with the organization. I do think that there's some minor things that we need to address, but appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank y'all.
You can hang around as long as you want.
I got a kid to babysit. So my wife's got stuff to do, so I will see y'all later.
Thank you, David.
y'all.
Have a good evening.
Appreciate it.
Do you want to think about a picture or take a break or just push on?
I think push on and we'll do
Okay.
that first.
All right. I'll go ahead and call the regular board meeting of Tullahoma Utilities Authority for October 27th, 2024. First thing on the agenda is approve the agenda. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Got a approval there in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Next thing on the agenda is approve the previous meeting minutes. Can I get a motion there?
So moved.
Second.
We've got approval in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That is unanimous as well. Didn't see any specific customer comments on the agenda items, unless I overlooked that. But, occasionally we'll get people telling us what a great job we do, and I think that's well deserved, so. Next item on the agenda is we got some recognitions. We have a new employee and also some people that have received some upgrade on their licensure. The first person is Dylan Green with our industrial maintenance technician position. Dylan, you here today?
Yes, sir.
Come up here. We'll introduce you to the board and also TV land. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure to meet you.
If you'll stand right here and tell us a little bit about yourself, we'd appreciate it.
Yep, Dylan Green from Estill. I've been doing industrial maintenance for around 8 years now. 7.5 of it was with Frito-Lay in Fayetteville, Tennessee, and spent a few months at Blue Origin in Huntsville. And I'm going on my first full month this week here.
Well, we hope you retire.
Plan on it.
They don't get scared from all the stuff. Yeah, and leave,
I didn't catch much.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Shandy, do you get a picture of this, or somebody did?
As I say, we're very pleased to have Dylan. He's jumped right in and is just doing a great job for us, and we're just happy as heck to have him, because there's a lot of stuff we need to get done, and he's really helping out.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dylan.
Pleasure to meet everyone.
Welcome, Dylan.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet everyone.
Next on the agenda, Nick Mears and Chris, they're not here. Somebody pronounce that last name. Truhoff received the wastewater collections 2 license. Would their boss like to give them kudos and tell us what it's all about?
Oh, yeah, I'm pleased as heck with them. We actually had 3 employees, and we had 2 out of 3 pass, which is a great percentage on those tests, believe me. But these are the guys that work, they work both in the water and wastewater department, but this is the wastewater collection license. They have to go in there, and they went to have to go to school for this, and also take the tests, and learn about, the safe way to do the position, do the work, and some about design of how you install wastewater facilities, the safety aspects to it. So we encourage all our employees to attempt these licenses, and we're happy when they get them.
I think it's a testament maybe to their boss and their bosses for encouraging them to do that. So congratulations, you guys. We missed having y'all come to the podium and public speak, which I encourage everybody to do that too. Be nervous at first, but then you get used to it, or more used to it. We're going to push right on into specific agenda action items. The first thing is appointment of board committee appointments. And for the 2024-2025 year policy committee. Thank you for backing me up. I had to grab it out of my phone. The chairman of that this year is going to be Miss Patty Dean, and the member is going to be Bush Toma. For the rate committee for this next year, the chairman will be Mike Stanton, and his backup will be J.T. Northcutt. Parliamentarian will also be Mr. Northcutt. Parliamentary staff assistant is Miss Shannon Hamblin. Secretary treasurer will be Jason Penny. Recording secretary will be Shannon Hamlin. The president's evaluation committee will be chaired by Mike Stanton, and Miss Patty Dean will be the member on that. So I don't think I just appoint that. I don't need any kind of second or anything, any voting on that. So ding, ding, ding. Thank y'all for volunteering or volunteered to do that. Rate committee can sometimes be challenging. Policy committee can be a lot of work, but along with the staff and our president here, they make that as easy as possible. So I've served on every one of these committees, and most of y'all have too. So Bush will train you up, and you'll be superb, I'm sure, at the end of the day. Next action item will be consider approval of the FY24 independent auditor report that we just listened to by Mr. Smith from Winnett & Associates out of Shelbyville. So I'm going to get a motion to approve that.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the board approve FY24 independent auditor report by Winnett Associates PLLC.
Second.
We've got a approval and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is committee reports. I don't think we've had a policy committee meeting since we were here a month ago, or a rate committee meeting since we were here a month ago. I'd say the next quarter we will probably have meetings on both. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For the president's evaluation,
Yes.
have we got a date on that, or we established one?
It's usually in the,
It was 6 months.
He has
Should be.
6
6
months, so
Right.
I'll need to reach out and get that scheduled
Okay.
with both parties.
all right,
I'll get with Shannon.
we're counting on you to
Yeah, I've got that
focus
on
with
the
the
list.
cattle prod to make sure we're everything done. Where are we here? Departmental reports. So I'll turn it over to you and Mr.
No, he's starting with me today.
Jason.
We're keeping you on your toes. So for the Marketing and Strategic Initiatives Department, a couple weeks ago we had the opportunity to attend the Tullahoma High School Career Fair. It was a really amazing event. We were able to talk about our co-op program, so we currently have 3 students here right now through that program. And the kids really asked a lot of great questions, and I think it generated a lot of interest for future participants in that program. Our Public Power Week event was a very successful event. We had over 350 people in attendance, which is pretty much on par for previous years. The event really gave us a chance to showcase TUA's services with the demo trailer and the bucket truck rides, and really just kind of reestablish our commitment to public power here in Tullahoma. Looking forward, a couple of recent announcements that we've made. We're currently partnering with the Arbor Day Foundation again to give away free trees to TUA's electric customers. So this is part of our ongoing efforts to promote energy efficiency here in Tullahoma. So customers can reserve those trees until November 19th, with distribution of those happening on November 19th and November 20th. But there are only 100 trees available, and we've seen quite a few people reserve them already, so I would encourage customers to act quickly to reserve those, and those can be reserved at arborday.org/TUA. And then in addition to some of those initiatives, we're looking ahead. Our Roundup program is happening. The holiday season is approaching much closer than we might think. So applications for that will open on November 1st and will be accepted through December 1st. And I think we're hoping to see some strong participation in that again this year. And that program really has that meaningful impact to help support those nonprofits that do such important work in and around Tullahoma. We're also preparing for the Light Up the Season decorating competition, which encourages community members to decorate their house with all the lights and the holiday festivities. So it's a great way to engage the community in that, and looking forward to seeing some of that creativity and holiday spirit. And that kind of wraps it up. Our team's just kind of gearing up for the busy holiday season and wrapping up football season. I guess the last thing I'll mention is that the homecoming game is this Friday, so we hope everyone can attend in person to cheer on the Wildcats, but if you can't, that will be on LightTube and on our YouTube as well.
Anybody have any questions?
Not a single question. Thank you.
I got one. What kind of trees are they?
That is a good question for our arborist. No, I do have our flyer here if anyone would like a copy of it, but we have Sun Valley Red Maple, Northern Red Oak, River Birch, and Brown Turkey Fig.
Surely I understand.
I don't know what any of those are, but I'm sure they look great.
Trees that won't encroach on the power lines.
Yeah.
I kind of figured that.
Exactly.
Thanks, ma'am. And we'll turn it over to the electric department.
Yep, I've got electric and fiber updates.
Right.
Stillwater subdivision, we are working on the phase 2 agreement with the developer, and this new phase will consist of 16 lots. The Pines subdivision, crews have been installing conduit there for a couple weeks now. They're roughly about 70% of the electric and fiber conduits. We've actually, on our AMI project, we received some census meters, and they have been field installed and are collecting data, and we have an initial training session scheduled on that for Thursday morning. We've also rolled out a new software it's called Anvil. It's an app that that the line crew put on their phones, and what this is going to do is it's going to replace our job safety briefings from a handwritten to a digital format. So we're kind of excited about that. We did test that. Our crew foreman tested it, and he said it worked really well. And Bradley Zill rolled that out to the line crews yesterday morning, actually. Fire department. Hate to say this happened, but due to a phone outage a couple of weeks ago, we did reach out to Momentum Telecom and try to get down to the root cause of it. And it was more of a configuration mismatch between us and them. So we did work with them and reconfigured our connections with them that's going to provide and reduce the risk of that happening again. We did test a new 100 gig circuit that we are in contract with Aurelian Telecom. We tested that on October 11th, and that has been passed on to their provisioning team. So we hope to have that turned up in just a few weeks. Again, what that is it's a full burstable 100 gig circuit for internet backhaul, and we are contractually set with them for 40 gig. which matches our bandwidth or our bit rates here. Stillwater, the fiber techs are still working on the backbone splicing this week, and we should have that completed really soon. And then just to follow up on Legacy Preserve, the first fiber phase was completed last month, but we do have the first customer connected in there, which is one of the model homes. And then recognitions, the only recognition I have is Kyle Riddle, Bradley Zeal, and our very own Emma Cook is doing the Coffee County Leadership Program this year.
Good deal.
Very good.
For the administrative department, y'all heard the audit report, so we've been working through that and looking at the entries that they required for us. And working with them, that was a very good task for us, was working with them and really taking a better look at everything that we do. And I felt like it was very fruitful. We found some things that we're going to clean up, and I think it was a very good audit. I really do. And I think it was good. We're working on updating our LGIP accounts to include our new bank accounts that we've set up at Traders Bank for our water and wastewater systems. So we're trying to set all that up to tie to the local government investment pool. We're actually preparing for our NISC conversion. We're working on a training schedule and developing curriculum and assigning those to the employees so they can go ahead and start hour-long sessions a week, once or twice a week, to try to go ahead and prepare them. And the go-live date for that is looking at September the 15th, I believe it is. So,
Full financials.
full financials, yes.
September
15th of next year. Yes.
Just for the financials.
Right.
Just financials. Yep. So we're trying to work ahead to make sure everybody's properly trained when they come out, so that they're prepared to ask the right questions.
Will you work in parallel with the old system and then drop off, or will it be September 15th, go to throttle up?
Well, it's really neat how they're going to do this. So we're going to continue to work in our current software, but they're going to create a training database based on our data. So you get in there and train at the end of the month, you give them all the data, they update the database. So you're not having to run one and put entries in both. Because I thought that's kind of where we were going with this. Is, man, that'd be a lot of
On
work.
September 15th, it's strictly
Yes,
NISC. That's their go live.
And I think
There's a
September
build up
the
to
9th,
that.
Yeah. September the 9th is the cutoff date, and they're going to go, it's going to be a quiet period where there's not going to be any entries made until we go live to the software, because they're going to
Smooth
move
transition then.
Yes.
Old software is history then.
Yeah, at that point, yes. We're working with the AMI system census. We're doing FlexNet training this Thursday, and we're going to pull a couple customer service reps, a couple of meter guys, and then me and Brad will be in there. So we're going to go through that and see how FlexNet works, which is the census meter management side of it. So, and then that's all I've got. Y'all got any questions? You have to answer any?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, tell us about our water.
All right. Well, it's been a busy month, I tell you that. I attended the Water Environment Federation's Techno Exhibition and Conference, or WEFTEC as it's otherwise known, in New Orleans earlier this month. That's on the wastewater side, and it is a huge exhibit hall. I don't know if y'all been to the convention center in New Orleans, but this thing, I think it's a mile long. It's you can spend days in there, and it's pretty amazing. So that was interesting. Y'all met Dylan, who we're very happy to have working for us now. We had a safety inspection by our insurance company last week, I guess. Yeah. Steve Powell, who has done this every year for us, and he comes in, he's very, very thorough. He likes to look at every vehicle, and he goes in every vehicle and inspects every vehicle, and then goes to all the buildings and looks at all the programs and everything. So we only had one little minor finding, which is easily fixed. So I think he has to find something. I think that's a rule of inspectors. But everything came out very well. He's very complimentary of us here. So the Wilson Avenue widening project, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. They basically completed the water line portion of it, which is good, although we had another contractor dig through a line today. That that's not a big deal. It was actually just some service lines, but we got that took care of. We've actually had several damages here recently. There's so much stuff going on just everywhere you turn, it's probably inevitable. And we've done one or two ourselves over the years, so I can't say anything, but we've had a couple water mains get broken and a sewer line or two here or there, so it keeps our crews on the toes fixing all that stuff, in addition to all their taps and everything else we're doing currently. On our SRF project, our sewer project, which is going from basically behind the high school, a force main, all the way over to the intersection of Riley Creek Road and Avoca eventually, is going very well. They've laid all the way from the high school all the way past Washington Street now, and they're actually on Avoca. So that's gone very well. It's still got a lot of work to do, but hopefully we'll get that done for too much longer. We've talked about being under a drought condition. And again, we're in no danger of running out of water. That is not an issue. We want to make people aware, though. Of course, hadn't rained in a while. Doesn't look like it's going to rain for a couple more weeks, maybe. But the reservoir is down a little bit, Normandy, but they're going to be lowering that anyway soon. TVA lowers it down to winter pool in November, basically. So we're in great shape. The real critical thing is to get the spring refill. And that's where we can get in trouble. If you don't get the spring refill, is where things can get a little dicey. But hopefully we won't have that issue, and we should be in good shape. Again, happy for our guys that passed those tests, and we encourage our employees to pursue those, and we'll have more in the future. Yes, sir.
New boy on the block.
Okay.
Does TVA coordinate with you all in regards to lowering the lake? Of course.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely
so
not.
They just arbitrarily seem to.
It's not arbitrary. We know what they're going to do. They have to maintain a certain flow at Shelbyville. That's the big thing. And during the summer months, they have to maintain a flow of 155 cubic feet per second at a gauge in Shelbyville. Instantaneous, that's right.
To take care of
trying to
their
change
sewer needs.
Right. And just to keep without that release from Normandy, the Duck River would be dry right now. I mean, it would be very dry. So, the Normandy is what keeps that river going.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. All right. It is now time for board member comments, and we're going to start with Mr. Stanton and work our way around.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just came from a meeting, John Rickman was given the Clyde Smith Award, which is a very prestigious award for a former educator. And unfortunately, they didn't start the meeting till 5 o'clock. I was there for at least for the reception, but anyway, so good to see John get recognized. He's very, very deserving. I want to thank Jason Jones and Chris Redicop. I had a TV issue, and it wasn't light to. It was a multi-plug outlet. If that little light, if it starts flickering, that means there's problems, folks. And your TV's going to start getting bothered. And mine was freezing, and I won't go through it. But in any case, Light Tube, they did a wonderful job coordinating. Poor guys spent an hour going through everything, all the lines, my TV, and anyway, make a long story short, they finally figured it out. But I want to thank Jason and Chris for their work. And I want to thank you, Jason, for your work with the auditing. I just can't imagine what that would be like. I never took an economics course or an accounting course, so I just very much listen to what's going on here, and thank goodness we've got JT here, and Bush, sounds like you're going to be knowledgeable about it too. And, Dr. Jimmy, you've got a business, so you're knowledgeable about some auditing too, are you not?
A little bit.
Yeah, so, thank you all, I'm glad you all on board, so you can help me understand a little better. Jason, thanks.
Thank you.
That's all I've got, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Northcutt.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
about it.
Attended the Water Week celebration, and it was great. I really disappointed because I didn't get up in the boom truck. I'll live through it.
I bet we can make that happen.
Well, no. I'll try, I'm close to being the same height as some of these kids. I thought I could sneak in, But it was good to see the public out. I want to applaud the organization for doing that. It builds a lot of tie-in support for us, and also it's a good outlet for us to communicate with our public the things that we do here, and a lot of people don't know. The audit report. Again, personally, I think it's good, and I was glad to hear Jason's opinion on it, that we have different auditors from time to time. It really is good. And I think that he did a very good report. I like to, not that it's not been done, probably already has been done, but take the opportunities from the audits. And by the way, you can request things from the auditors too. This is important to us. It's not just, let's don't take it as they're coming in and checking us out. Make them work. We like, it's good to know areas that are performing well. It's good to know, not having non-conformances is great, but ask them, are there areas that they can see where we can improve on? Because the information that they give you that's not about non-conformances is really good information. And it can be used to prevent things downstream. So, if we think about, and again, just take what happened today where we got these things where it's been on the books for 10 years. So if we asked, maybe a couple of years ago, was there anything that you saw, make them dig, and use that to benefit the organization. Don't use it as oh no, it's here they come again. Use it so you can see really where you're at from someone else's eyes. Also ask them, have they identified anything here, because we may have some best practices in the way we do things, right? So make the auditors do more than just audit us. Make them use their knowledge, and sometimes when they find things, you can ask, have they found other places that do it a certain way that's better? So just think about that. I want to thank Alan for the mid-month report. It's very good. Not saying that prior year wasn't good. Brian did a good job too, but it's a lot of information. It's really good for me. Good information. And of course, I'm very happy to see we continue to have employees that continue their education. That it benefits us greatly, it benefits them and their families, so I appreciate that. And last, I want to thank again, we've always supported our neighbors, and neighbors don't mean next door. It's good to see the people that went to support the victims from the hurricane. The latest hurricane came through, so that's all I have, and I will say it's good to be on this side because I can get to eat snacks. Yeah. So.
Thank Mr. Miller. Miss Patty.
I wanted to again, thank you for the great list. It's amazing how much activity happens all the time. Every month. And so it's great to get the lowdown, the outline of what is happening here. And specifically, I just wanted to thank TUA for support and the employees, linemen that went over for 9 days that they spent in Elizabethton. Did I say that right?
Yeah, pretty good. You did good.
And to help storm restoration. And I know just from watching the news that there's still so many problems, so much help that's required. So hopefully that everybody continues to make East Tennessee, West North Carolina, just keep them in your prayers, and any help that people can provide is important. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Toma, tell us what's on your mind.
I don't have anything particular on my mind, but I really appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board. When Lynn asked me if there was any particular board I wanted to be appointed to, I virtually said, appoint me to the one that you think I can serve the best. And I'm really fortunate to be on this board. The services that are provided here touches everybody's life in Tullahoma.
Right.
And I'm proud to be a part of that. It's a big deal, and I'm looking forward to learning from you all. Really excited about serving with the members board, especially JT. We went to school together.
Yes, we did.
And it's exciting to kind of reunite on
And
that.
that was
It is.
Tullahoma High School too.
Senior high school when we went.
Yeah.
Senior high school, let's make a mistake about it.
West Junior High.
Exactly. We go way, way.
I can state this with Mike Stanton. A real quick story. Mike was the guidance counselor at the high school. And I called him up when we used to have files. And I said, I need a person that you think would help us come in and do filing for us. And the young lady said, well, she's had a kind of a rough background. Not that she's been rough, she just has been grown up in an environment. That young lady has worked for me probably close to 40 years.
Wow.
And thanks to Mike, we were never connected. So I look forward, I'm looking forward to learn, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your comments. First, we'll wrap it up on board members. I'd like to thank Winnet for the audit. I'm glad we had a clean audit. That means we're doing, most everything right. I know it's a lot of work to have the audit done. We appreciate all the work that y'all put into that. Also, second, the kudos to the guys that we sent up to East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. I've been on the board a few years, and we are good about doing that. We've sent people to Florida before and different places, and it's not only a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Back when we had our EF0 tornado back 2016, there were people that came in and helped us. So that's just, I think the electrical community does that. I don't know of any community around that doesn't send help out. And I think it's a great thing, 'cause you never know when you're going to need that help. So appreciate our guys for leaving home and staying away from their family, but helping people that really needed it. Homecoming's this weekend. If you want to watch, if you can't go to the game in person and see Mr. and Miss THS, Homecoming Queen and King and all that, you can watch it on LightTube, which is wonderful. You can listen to Ken and Mr. Scott.
Scott Chastain?
Yeah, they can give us the play-by-play. And all the other people, it's just not them two. It takes a crew to put that on, but we really appreciate those guys. So that's all I have. And next we'll go to customer comments. Mr. Noah, do you have anything for us this evening?
Don't have anything specific, but I just want to say how proud I am to have an opportunity to have served on this board. Having served on their policy committee, I'm anxious to see there's always some things you can improve on policies, and I know we'll get them done, but I had an opportunity to do that. Had an opportunity to serve on the strategic plan. So I feel like an investment in this board, and I'm just, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
No problem. Come back anytime. Dr. Leffler?
One question.
Yes.
Will the policy committee assignments and the committees, what they are, be included in the minutes?
Yes, they will.
Yes, they will.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ding, ding. Did we have any comments, or customer comments called in that we know of? No. All right, Mr. Presidente.
Talking about the storm, it's really a staple of public power, helping neighbors, and our guys are always anxious. We don't have to go ask them when they know a hurricane's coming. They're at my office and saying, hey, put us on the list. We're ready to go and serve those communities. And that was Kyle Riddle for this trip. Hurricane Helene was Kyle Riddle, Stephen Mantooth, Nicholas White, and Dustin Cheney.
Great.
And, they served 9.5, 10 days over there. And their managers already called me with just singing their praises on how good it was to have our crews there. And that's every time our crew goes anywhere is we always get a call back next time. EPB calls us a lot, and they're just really impressed with our team. Dylan Green, great to have him here. We had several good applicants for that position. You like being in a position where you really can't decide. And we were there, but Dylan, he really stood out. And this is part of succession planning. Dylan will hopefully be replacing an employee that's going to retire in the next few years. And he did a great interview. And that's the same for Nick Mears and Chris Truhoff. When they go get these certifications, it's not really just a piece of paper they get. We're building for the future, hoping to promote from within and then hire entry-level positions. That way you're keeping people motivated to come to work here because there's upward movement for them people. Andy Warren, who works in engineering, he also finished his line design and staking. So he does all of our outside engineering for the electric side. And really smart young man. And that's a complicated certification he finished through TVPPA. So kudos to him as well. Light Tube was +5 for the month, and I believe confident we'll continue to see Light Tube grow, especially with the neighborhoods coming in.
Keeps growing.
The audit process, we knew this year was going to be a difficult audit because we've had our older announcement for how long?
15 plus years.
15 years. It's like JT said, you're just, the term that people say is rubber stamping, right? So Jason and his team were prepared for that. Jason and Jason has done a phenomenal job, and it's been, how long have they been here?
A long time.
Months. They've been here
Forever.
It's the longest we've ever had.
I know they called me 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
They put up a tent.
Yeah, so they've been here for months, and you don't realize it, but you got to carry on your day-to-day
That's right.
job.
That's an interruption.
Plus
Yeah.
what they're wanting, and we'll deal with that with NISC as well. So we're preparing and building up our team that we'll have to put some extra hours in. I want to clarify the NISC schedule. Financials is the only thing that will be ready September 5th, and we're converting all. It's financials, it's customer service, it's warehouse, plan accounting, mapping, engineering. That's going to be a 2-year process. So 2026 is the go live for late in 2026 for everything else. And also NISC has about 1,000 customers. So they know what they're doing. And they will be also looking at our processes in customer service, accounting. So we're getting the double whammy this year with the auditors and NISC. So we know there's things to improve on. So we're excited about that. The committees, no worries for you guys. The rate committee and the policy committee will be busy this year because we have some policies we want to change, and we've hired an outside consultant to look at our rates. They haven't been looked at deeply in several years, so we're using an outside consultant for that. Next week, I'm going to the Energize Tomorrow conference. It's a TVPPA conference in Huntsville. There's a lot of challenges in TVA in the Valley with the growth we're getting, so we're coming together and going to discuss how we can defeat the challenges. I'm confident that we will. And I believe that's my report.
Very good. Anybody else have anything this evening?
Oh, I don't want to circle back to
No problem.
the retirement and the sick leave policy. I think there was some confusion on, sick leave, vacation. We have vacation and sick
And
leave.
sick leave,
So I think we can fix this easily by policy and basically improving the sick leave policy to include the retirement benefits on it.
Anything else? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Michelle might want to, don't everybody run out.
We're going to take a picture of the board members, so don't run away. And
Wasting up.
that's all I have. Call this meeting adjourned.
Wait, yeah, that's